So to follow up on the last audio video that I did, again, I don't know what this guy's thing was, if you will, to where he doesn't think, cartoons on Blu-ray, especially cartoons 30, 40 years old, would be marketable. Because obviously, like I said, he doesn't have a clue, he doesn't have a clue, one iota, if you will, that, kids of today are not the audience you're targeting. No, it's kids of yesteryear, of yesterdecade, that you are targeting. It is kids that are adults today, that are, parents, grandparents, of today, that you are targeting with the release of shows like Sonic Sat-Ham and, Heathcliff, the Cadillac Cats, Jason the Will Warriors on physical media. Which is why companies like Discotech, even Disney and Warner Brothers and Universal to an extent, when they go this direction, they understand, okay, this is the audience we're targeting towards, because they'll be the ones that's more inclined to buy it. But that brings me to this. I talked about Della Duck, the potential that she could have had the DuckTales reboot gone further. And I also talked about in the previous audio video that Disney released Rescue Rangers on Blu-ray to tie in with the Rescue Ranger movie that was coming on Disney Plus. And I mentioned that the Rescue Ranger movie and the Blu-ray release of the original show were all targeted for one specific audience. The audience that grew up with those characters, with that show. And, it got me thinking about DuckTales, about the reboot. And the reason it got me thinking about the reboot is because of all the Disney Afternoon references that was put in there. And how they kind of all tied together. And how only we, the audience that grew up with the Disney Afternoon, would take notice and even figure out exactly, okay, how is this possible? How is that possible? Or, oh, okay, we understand why this is happening this way and why that's happening that way. We would have a better understanding. Which is why, when you look at a reboot like, let's say, DuckTales, or any reboot that's similar to it of an original show back from the 80s or the 90s that are being done for today, you can see that show is being aimed more so towards the older adult audience of yesteryear and yesterdecade, because they'd be the ones that would catch all these references and have these understandings. I mean, even believe it or not, when Friendship is Magic, became more, I guess you could say, maturer and more adult-like in its humor and its storytelling at times, a lot of adult fans were able to catch on to, let's say, some of the G1 references, or some of the things that were going over the heads of maybe the intended audience, the original intended audience. So basically, these were shows like, again, with MLP FIM, originally meant for a younger audience that became more targeted towards the audience of yesteryear, of yesterdecade, because now they kind of saw the references, the acknowledgments, the eye winks and all that towards things that we would get, we would understand, and everything, And again, going back to the DuckTales reboot and everything, the main audience that enjoyed it the most was the audience that grew up with that era of Disney Afternoon programming from 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Not 40 years ago, but 30 years ago, 35 years ago. Not, kids of today, which is why when even kids of today would watch DuckTales, the reboot, and, look at these characters like Kit and Molly grown up, look at the Rescue Rangers, look at, Darkwing Duck, and kind of then notice the smile on the adults' generation's faces and everything, being like, we know what's going on here. Oh, we see what's happening, da-da-da. And they ask questions. We, as adults that grew up with that, can share our knowledge. We can let them know. I mean, if you look at Tiny Toons Looniversity, Okay? It's a TV PG rated Saturday morning cartoon. You can watch all the episodes on Max right now. And, you know, here's the thing. You have the younger audience that might enjoy it, but also notice a big smile on our faces of, oh good, our favorite Tiny Toon characters are back. But also notice our disappointment with some of the decisions they've made with the show. And, you know, they might ask, well, why are you angry about this? Why this? Why that? And we can share upon them our knowledge. We can share upon them our knowledge as to why, you know, we're disappointed in said decision. Or why we're disappointed in said decision, but we can understand, you know, why they did it, if you will. You know, we can share upon that knowledge. You know, we can bestow it upon them. Which is why when you look at a lot of the shows, even in recent years, the reboots, you know, and everything, or even the soft continuations, like let's say Biker Mice from Mars did their soft continuation. You know, this is why when you notice all these, you'll come to realize that these shows in their own way are getting targeted or are targeted towards that older demographic, because they can see, understand, and bestow knowledge of what's going on to the new generation that may be wondering, okay, why are you interested? Why this and this and this? So, again, in closing, this is just a follow-up, on the last video. And again, kind of to hopefully wake people like Chris Johnson up to make them realize that, hey, when you create a show that might be, a nod, by title and by characters to the original and put references in there, you have to realize that you're targeting it towards the original audience, not just the new audience, mostly the original. But if you're also releasing something on a streaming service or physical media, you need to realize that the audience you're releasing it for is an audience of yesteryear and yesterdecade. And that's a fact. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Comment down below, live chat during the premiere. Talk to y'all later.